Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. I'm Ty Glenn. Hopefully you guys are having a great day. And one special message to the people in Los Angeles. I know the wildfires are going on. A lot of crazy stuff happening in LA. And just want you guys to know that we're thinking about you. Hopefully you stay safe and away from the wildfire. I know some people have lost their homes due to the wildfire. And just to let you know, we're praying for you. We're making sure that in the end, everything's going to be all right. And we know for sure God will work it out. All you need is a little bit of prayer. I know you guys are having hard times right now in LA. And just want you to know that we're thinking about you. And always pray God's going to work it out. He's going to do it in his favor. And he's going to do it. Won't he do it? Yes, he would. All the time. So just pray and ask God to help you through that struggling time. And everybody across the world are thinking about you and making sure that you guys are staying safe. Like I said, I know people lost their homes in LA. And we are praying for you as well. And making sure that you guys get through this tragedy together. So, all right, now we are going to start off with the NHL news of the day. So I'm not going to recap too many games on this show. Just recap like at least three games on this show because there are some other things that I want to actually discuss in this episode. So we're not going to recap at least half of the games or, the majority of the games that came on yesterday. Just 3 games going to recap on the show. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So Senators, Sabres. First time Senators are back at home since December 14th against the Pittsburgh Penguins, which they won in overtime 3-2. Brady Tkachuk scored the overtime game-winning goal in that game. And their first game back at home, not a good start. Obviously, they were on their 9-game road trip because of the World Juniors, in which they finished 4-4-1 during that span. But when they returned home, they got shut out by the Buffalo Sabres. And Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, he made 35 saves in that shutout win over the Senators. Second shutout of the season for Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, and the Sabres moved to 16-21-5 of the season. They won 2 in a row so far, won 5 of their last 10, and they're 5-2-1 since snapping that long 13-game losing streak. Ryan McLeod, he had a goal and 2 assists for a 3-point night for the Buffalo Sabres. Jack Quinn scored twice for Buffalo. And Dylan Cousins also scored for the Sabres. And for the Senators, like I said, not a good start at home. But Anton Forsberg made 17 saves for the Senators in the shutout loss. And speaking of losing, Senators are currently on a 4-game losing streak. 0-3-1 during the span. They've been outscored 15-4 and they're 19-18-3 of the season. Senators head to the Steel City to take on the Pittsburgh Penguins Saturday at 3:00 p.m. Central Time. The Sabres return home to face the Kraken for the start of a 3-game homestand Saturday at 3:00 p.m. Central Time. It was a milestone night in the Steel City as Sidney Crosby passes Joe Sakic for 9th in all-time points list in Penguins' 5-3 win over the Oilers. So he takes sole possession of being in 9th on the NHL's all-time point list. He had a goal and 2 assists to achieve the milestone, and he now has 1,643 points in 1,315 games played. So 604 goals, 1,039 assists for 1,643 points in 1,315 games played. And the Penguins moved to 18-17-8 of the season. And fun fact, I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but this was actually the Penguins' first win against the Oilers since December 20th of 2019. So 5 years. So it's been 5 years, 6 years since the Penguins have got a win over the Oilers. And not only do they get the win over the Edmonton Oilers for the first time since 2019, but they also end their 4-game losing streak And 2 of those losses during that span were shootout losses, and 1 of those losses were overtime losses, which was against Carolina, the overtime loss, and I think the shootout loss was to the Blue Jackets, and it was another team I'm forgetting, but I can't remember which one, though. But they snapped their 4-game losing skid nonetheless. Brian Russ, he had a goal and 2 assists for a 3-point night in this one, and Drew O'Connor had a goal and an assist. And Ricard Raquel and Kevin Hayes also scored for Pittsburgh in the win. So that line of Brian Russ, Drew O'Connor, I think Kevin Hayes just absolutely went off for Pittsburgh. I did watch this game yesterday. I got to see this game a little bit because there was a lot of other great games that was on yesterday. There was 10 games on the slate, so couldn't really decide which one that I actually want to watch. But I did watch part of that game between the Oilers and Penguins as well, because it's always good to see Connor McDavid and Sidney Crosby go at it against each other. And that was the 15th time that they went at it against each other. Obviously, 2 generational talents in their own right. So, yeah. And Alisson Delkovich, he made 40 saves in the win. And for the Oilers, Leon Draisaitl scored twice in the loss. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins also scored for Edmonton. And Connor McDavid had 3 assists in the loss. And Stuart Skinner made 21 saves. So after getting a shutout win, or at least sharing the shutout, because I don't think he fully got the shutout. I think Calvin Picker came to that game against Boston. So after that shutout win for the Oilers, they lose 5-3 to the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Oilers conclude their 4-game road trip against the Chicago Blackhawks Saturday at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. So far, they're 2-1-0 during the road trip. They look to make it 3-1-0 against Chicago. The Penguins continue their 5-game homestand against the Ottawa Senators Saturday at 3 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Not only was it a milestone night in Pittsburgh, but it was also a milestone night in Tampa Bay as Braden Point reached 600 points with a Braden Point reached 600 points. Ryan McDonough reached 400 career points in the Lightning's 4-1 win against the Boston Bruins, and they moved to 22-15-2 of the season. So Braden Point only needed a power play goal to reach 600 career points, and that's what he did against the Boston Bruins. So he now has 289 goals, 311 assists for 600 career points in 615 career games. Ryan McDonough had 2 assists to reach 400 points. He actually now has 401 points in his career, but still passed the 400-plus milestone nonetheless. So he now has 77 goals, 324 assists for 401 career points in 967 career games. Brandon Hagel, he had a goal and assist for a 2-point night. And Anthony Cirelli and Michael Eyssimont scored for Tampa in the win, while Andre Vasilevsky made 27 saves on 28 shots facing net. So the special teams really came into play for Tampa in this win. Anthony Cirelli with a shorthanded goal, Braden Point with a power play goal. Special teams just stood on top right there for Tampa. For the Boston Bruins, Mason Lohrei scored for Boston, while Jeremy Swayman made 27 saves on 30 shots faced in net. I should mention this too. It was the battle of the Geekie brothers in this one. Morgan Geekie of the Boston Bruins played against his younger brother, Connor Geekie of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Obviously, Connor Geekie and the Lightning got the win. And for the Bruins, they lose their 6th straight game, 0-5-1 during the span in the 2019 and 5 of the season. These 2 teams will meet again Tuesday, January 14th. But before that game happens, obviously that game will be in Boston, by the way, on January 14th. But before that happens, the Bruins will play the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers Saturday at 12 o'clock p.m. Central Time. That game will air on ABC and ESPN+. The Lightning will start a 3-game road trip in New Jersey Saturday against the Devils at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Now, still staying with the Boston Bruins after their loss to the Tampa Bay Lightning, everybody's got to know, especially Boston Bruins fans, are the Bruins a huge concern? So this is a team that has lost 6 in a row following their 4-1 loss to the Tampa Bay Lightning, 2019 and 5 of the season. Currently are in first place in a wild card spot in the Eastern Conference. And they started off the season 8-9-3, before they fired Jim Montgomery. So obviously the Bruins have turned it around from that point, but now it seems to go downhill for the Boston Bruins. So could we see the Boston Bruins in the Stanley Cup playoffs? I believe so. I still believe, because obviously this is a temporary thing. I mean, the Bruins are still, a great solid team to watch, despite them losing 6 in a row. So I believe they'll turn things around at some point. But what are we seeing from the Boston Bruins during the 6-game skid? One thing that I'm seeing is offensive struggling and not them scoring as much. I mean, they had a 3-1 loss to the Washington Capitals on New Year's Eve 2024. And then they had a 2-1 loss to the New York Rangers, who won in overtime last night against their arch rivals, New Jersey Devils, 3-2. And then they had a 6-4 loss to their rivals, the Toronto Maple Leafs. 5-4 overtime loss to the New York Islanders. They were shut out 4-0 to the Oilers. And now 4-1 loss to the Lightning. So the most goals that they scored during their 6-game losing skid was at least 4 goals. But other than that, we're not seeing enough from the Bruins offense. So they're struggling to create scoring chances during this losing skid, and it's going to be even tougher to create those scoring chances when they take on the defending Stanley Cup champion for the Panthers tomorrow, a team that has eliminated them from the Stanley Cup playoffs 2 consecutive years. Defensive issues. We're not seeing that great defense from the Boston Bruins. We can't just seem to shut down the best team's offense. Like Maple Leafs, they have a great offensive lines. And then they lost 6-4 to the Maple Leafs last Saturday. Matthew Nyes had a hat trick in that game. And then they lost 5-4 in overtime to the New York Islanders, a team that, it's not even a playoff team. They're not even a playoff team. And the Bruins somehow still lost to the New York Islanders in overtime. And this is the longest losing streak for the Boston Bruins since the 2014-15 seasons. They weren't even in the playoffs then. They were not in the playoffs. They were not in 2015 Stanley Cup playoffs. So everything has changed now. I mean, it's now 2025. 2015 was a decade ago. I still believe that this Bruins team will be a playoff team despite the struggles. But I know Bruins players and their interim head coach, Joe Sacco, have talked about the emotional slump and how the team needed to change things quickly and get momentum to break out of this difficult stretch. And you should take a look at the next 5 games for the Boston Bruins. Obviously, they're facing the defending champs tomorrow. Obviously, that's going to be another tough game for the Boston Bruins. But they're going to have to find a way to shut down Florida's offense and to shut down Sam Bennett, because last year in the Stanley Cup playoffs, Sam Bennett has been a problem for the Florida Panthers, and they're going to need to find a way to shut him down. And also Matthew Tkachuk and Alexander Barkov and any other of the Florida Panthers top players. Tuesday, January 14th, they're up against the same Tampa Bay Lightning team, so we will see another battle between Morgan Geekie and the kind of Geekie. And then next Saturday, they're in Ottawa to take on the Ottawa Senators. The Senators are not in a playoff spot as of right now. I believe they will, so that's going to be another tough matchup. And then Monday, January 20th, they face the San Jose Sharks. So Macklin Celebrini and the San Jose Sharks will be in Beantown to take on the Boston Bruins. Obviously should be an easy win right there for the Boston Bruins. And then Wednesday, January 22nd, they face the New Jersey Devils, another playoff team right there. So these next 5 games, 3 out of these 5 teams are playoff teams. The Lightning are 3rd in the Atlantic Division, which coming into this one, they were a wild card spot. The Bruins were 3rd in the Atlantic Division. So 3 out of 5 of these teams are playoff teams right here for the Boston Bruins. And obviously it's going to be tough games, especially against the Panthers. And it's going to be another tough game against the Devils as well. So they're going to need to change things quickly. But I still think that this team will be a playoff team. So if you want my thoughts on this, Boston Bruins fans, despite you guys on the 6-game losing streak, you have nothing to worry about. I mean, you guys are still going to be a playoff team nonetheless. I think this is a temporary thing. this is temporary because obviously you guys started off the season not on a good note, right? I mean, you started off the season 8-9-3 before you fired Jim Montgomery. And then you hired Joe Sacco. Then you guys started to turn things around at that point. And now you're back in the same slump again, this time only losing 6 games in a row. So I think this is a temporary thing. I think you guys will turn it around and you guys will be a playoff team. So I don't think you have nothing to worry about. Obviously, like I said, tough games for these next 5 games. But the most important part, you guys have nothing to worry about. I think this is just temporary. You guys will find a way to solve it at some point. You guys will turn things around just like that. Just like you did at the beginning of the season when Joe Sacco coached you guys for the first time. So I think this is just temporary, and you guys will find a way to turn it around and gain momentum and your 6-game skid. All right, so yesterday the NHL announced that the Panthers will take on the Rangers in the 2026 NHL Winter Classic, and the Lightning will face the Bruins in the 2026 NHL Stadium Series. So the Panthers will play the Rangers in the 2026 NHL Winter Classic on January 2nd of 2026 at Lone Depot Park in Miami, which is home to the MLB's Miami Marlins. First NHL outdoor game in South Florida, by the way. If you guys did not know that, which I'm pretty sure you did, because there's never been an outdoor game in Florida. And this will be the Florida Panthers' first appearance in the outdoor game. Obviously, we never seen them in an outdoor game before, so this will be the first time that the defending Stanley Cup champions will play in an outdoor game. New York Rangers, this will be their, 6th outdoor game, if I'm right? 6th outdoor game for the New York Rangers. So far, they're 5-0. So when it comes to playing these outdoor games for the New York Rangers, it is certainly a no-brainer. I mean, the Rangers are going to get it done every single time. The most recent win in the outdoor game was in the Stadium Series last season with a 6-5 overtime win against the New York Islanders. My thoughts on this, well, actually, I won't share my thoughts until I discuss the Stadium Series between the Lightning and the Bruins, because obviously, Panthers and Lightning are going to be hosting these games in Florida. So I'll share you guys my thoughts after I discuss the Lightning and the Bruins Stadium Series, which that Stadium Series will be played on February 1st of 2026 at Raymond James Stadium. This is home to the NFL's Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This will be the first outdoor NHL game hosted in Tampa. The Lightning have played in the outdoor game before, most recently being the 2022 NHL Stadium Series against the Nashville Predators, which was a 3-2 win for the Bolts. The Bruins, on the other hand, will be playing their 6th outdoor game in franchise history. The most recent one was a 2-1 win against the Pittsburgh Penguins at the 2023 NHL Winter Classic at Fenway Park. Now, my thoughts on this. I wasn't too excited, to be honest. I mean, based on the matchups, and I don't know if you guys saw my possible 2026 NHL Winter Classic matchups video that I posted on the TG Hockey channel before the NHL made this announcement yesterday. But I said in that video, I would love to see the Panthers and Lightning play each other in the Winter Classic. Obviously, that did not happen. But it would have been a great matchup to see. And then the Bruins and the Rangers can play in the Stadium Series. That should have been the matchups. So when the NHL first announced this, I wasn't too excited. I mean, obviously, yes, I would want to see the Panthers in the Winter Classic. That's what I said on my TG Hockey channel. You guys did not see that video. But it should have been against the Lightning. That would have drawn a lot more viewers, a lot more interest, and possibly even the fans that are living in Florida, if you're fans of the Panthers and Lightning. Because who doesn't want to see a battle of Florida in the Winter Classic? I mean, I know I do. Even though I'm a Blackhawks fan, I would love to see a battle of Florida in the NHL Winter Classic. I mean, these two teams have gone at it numerous times, including in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Most recently, the Panthers winning in 5 games against the Tampa Bay Lightning in the 2024 Stanley Cup playoffs. And then same thing with the Stadium Series. Who doesn't want to see an original 6 matchup in an outdoor game. I know we had one before in the 2016 NHL Winter Classic, I believe, when the Canadians faced the Bruins. And it could be Bruins and Rangers in the Stadium Series because original six matchups are always fun to see. And that would have drew in a lot more interest and excitement. And it would have been in a colder climate, either in New York or Boston. It would have been in a colder climate. It wouldn't have to be in Florida. I mean, the Panthers and Lightning could have just faced each other in the Winter Classic. Could have been there all by themselves, played in the Winter Classic, outdoor game. I don't know how that would turn out, though. Because like I said, Florida is known to have its heat. This is something that I did not say in that Winter Classic possible matchup video, but I should have said this. I don't know how the ice is going to hold up for the NHL Winter Classic and the Stadium Series, since, like I said, Florida's known for its heat, it's known for its high temperatures, but I'm pretty sure the NHL will solve that problem, and can't wait to see how it turns out. But one thing that I do not like about this for the Winter Classic particularly is that it's on January 2nd. What happened to having Winter Classics on New Year's Day, people? I mean, I was listening to this podcast and somebody said that they were unaware that the Blues and Blackhawks would be playing a Winter Classic on New Year's Eve. They were unaware. They didn't know because they used to have Winter Classics being played on New Year's Day. What happened to having Winter Classics on New Year's Day? I mean, when I was a kid, that always used to be the thing. When I was growing up, I used to always see Winter Classic games happening on New Year's Day, especially when my Chicago Blackhawks were in it. And P.S. we suck at Winter Classics, by the way. But that was always the thing when I was a kid. It always used to be Winter Classic games on New Year's Day. Not on New Year's Eve, not on January 2nd, not on January 3rd, but on New Year's Day. And the NHL, for some reason, decided to switch that up. I don't know why. I think you should still keep having Winter Classic games on New Year's Day. As for the Stadium Series, obviously this upcoming Stadium Series between the Blue Jackets and Red Wings, that's in March. And the NHL decided to change it to February. I don't know why. I think it should still be in March like this one. I think last year in the Stadium Series between the Rangers and Islanders and the Flyers and Devils, I think that one was either in March or February. It could have been in February or March. But for Winter Classic games, I think it should be played on New Year's Day, not on New Year's Eve, not on January 2nd, not on January 3rd, January 4th. You name it, it should be played on that day. But, yeah, just to wrap up my thoughts, Winter Classic and Stadium Series in Florida, wasn't too excited about it. I don't know how the ice is going to be down there because Florida's known to have its high temperatures and heat, so NHL will solve that problem. But I think it should be great for the fans of Florida, nonetheless, and can't wait to see what happens. But like I said, when they announced it, I wasn't too excited based on the matchups. It should have been Panthers Lightning Winter Classic and Rangers and Bruins Stadium Series. That would have drew in a lot more interest. But just like the 2025 NHL Winter Classic, the ratings will go down. Not a lot of people will tune in, mostly because they already know who's going to win between the two teams. And probably won't be that much interesting to them. Except if you're a resident in Florida. If you live in Florida and if you're a fan of Panthers and Lightning, obviously this will be a lot of interest to you, but nobody else is going to see it based on the matchups. I mean, that's just my thoughts on it. But let me know how you guys, let me know what you guys think of the Winter Classic and the Stadium Series being in Florida between the Panthers and Rangers Winter Classic and the Lightning and Bruins Stadium Series. Let me know you guys' thoughts down in the comments down below. If you're watching on YouTube and, if you're watching on Spotify, leave a comment down below. I think if you're tuning in on Apple Podcasts, iHeart Radio, you can't leave a comment, but just head over to YouTube, leave a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on these matchups for the Winter Classic and Stadium Series for 2026. All right, now to answer the other big question. Are the Canucks in trouble? So the Canucks currently hold the second wild card spot in the Eastern Conference with not Eastern Conference, Western Conference, excuse me. I meant to say Western Conference. So they currently hold the second wild card spot in the Eastern Conference with 46 points. They lost 4 of their last 5 games. They lost 8 of their last 10 games. They lost 2 straight games into overtime. And they're 18, 12, and 10 of the season. So are the Canucks in trouble? Like I was saying for the Boston Bruins, well, actually, yeah, it's kind of like what I was saying for the Boston Bruins. I think you have nothing to worry about as long as you're being consistent. Because like I said, it's kind of the same thing for the Blackhawks. I mean, the Blackhawks are having trouble finding inconsistency. And during these past few games for the Vancouver Canucks, they're having trouble finding consistency, especially since some of their players are out with injuries. Especially key players like Elias Pettersson, he's out with an undisclosed injury. Philip Hronek is out with a lower body injury. And the goaltending challenges, Kevin Lankinen has been the starting goalie. I don't think Thatcher Demko's injured, but when he was injured, Kevin Lankinen was taking that more of a starting goaltender role. Man, ever since then, his last 6 outings, he's like 1-3-2. 3.05 goals against average and a .865 save percentage. And overtime struggles. The Canucks this season are 4-10 when it comes to overtime. They are 4-10 in overtime. And like I mentioned, they lost 2 straight games into overtime. They lost 2-1 to the Capitals in overtime. I think that was Wednesday. Pierre-Luc Dubois scored both goals in the win for the Capitals. And then they lost in overtime Monday to the Canadiens. And Nick Suzuki, I believe, had that overtime game-winning goal. So when it comes to overtime, the Canucks suck at it. Like, they have issues and trouble winning overtime. And their power play is 15th in the league at 22.8%. And their penalty kill is 13th in the league with 80.5%. So special teams not working out in the favor for the Vancouver Canucks. So obviously that's something that they're going to have to fix. And they're continuing their 5-game road trip in Carolina as they take on the Carolina Hurricanes Friday. And then Saturday, they'll head to Toronto, take on the Winnipeg Jets? They head to Toronto Saturday to take on the Toronto Maple Leafs. And then Tuesday, they'll be in Winnipeg to take on the Winnipeg Jets. And then Thursday, they're back at home against the LA Kings, which is a start of a 3-game homestand for the Canucks. And then Saturday, January 18th, they play against the Edmonton Oilers, and then they will play them again on January 23rd. So these next 5 games are going to be tough for the Vancouver Canucks. They kind of rhyme, by the way. But they're going to be tough nonetheless. And the Canucks are going to have to find a way to end their skid, get back into the playoff race. Well, actually, they kind of are in the playoff race because they're in the wild card spot. But last season, they won the Western Conference. And they're going to have to work their way up again, get back into one of the at least top 3 teams in the Pacific Division, and possibly win the Western Conference like they did last season. But it's going to be tough nonetheless. I mean, you should take a look at all 5 of those teams that I just said. Hurricanes, they're facing the Hurricanes Friday. Saturday, they're facing the Maple Leafs. Tuesday, they're facing the Jets. Next Thursday, facing the LA Kings. Thursday, January 16th. And then next Saturday, they face the Oilers. If you take a look at all 5 of those teams, they are in a playoff spot. The Canucks are in the playoff spot too, but the Flames are right behind them with 45 points in the Western Conference. And then St. Louis, who had a 6-2 win against Cam Fowler's old team, the Anaheim Ducks, yesterday, they had 44 points. So these are teams that are creeping up behind the Vancouver Canucks. So the Canucks are really going to have to rack up some wins in order to rack up more points and extend their points, so the Flames and Blues and any other teams in the Western Conference won't catch up to them. Because like I said, they're holding a second wild card spot in the Eastern Conference. And between them, the Flames, and the St. Louis Blues, it is tight. It is tight, but it's also tough for the Canucks, and they're going to really have to get it together and end their losing skid. All right, NHL games on the slate for today. So there's only 5 games on the slate. The Blackhawks will face the Red Wings at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. This will air on NHL Network. Second and final meeting of the season between the two teams. Red Wings won the first meet back on November 6th at the United Center. by a final score of 4-1. And then the Montreal Canadiens take on the Washington Capitals today at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Last meeting of the season between the two teams. The Capitals won the first two meets. They won 6-3 back on Halloween. And then they won 4-2 in Montreal, I think in November or December. And then, like I said, one more thing I want to add for that game. Alex Ovechkin, currently 23 goals away from passing Wayne Gretzky on the NHL's all-time goals list. So hopefully he scores in this one tonight. And then we got the Vancouver Canucks taking on the Carolina Hurricanes, 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. I already discussed about how the Canucks needed to win and stay consistent. Second and last meeting this season between the two teams. Hurricanes won the first meet back on October 28th in overtime by a final score of 4-3. Sebastian Aho had the overtime game-winning goal. He scored 47 seconds into overtime in that game. And then we got the LA Kings taking on the Winnipeg Jets at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Second of three meetings this season. The Kings won the first meet back on November 27th at home by a final score of 4-1. They will meet again on April 1st in LA. And then the San Jose Sharks take on Utah Hockey Club at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Final meeting this season between the two teams, and the road teams have won both meetings this season. San Jose won 5-4 in overtime in Utah on October 28th. That was actually a comeback win for the Sharks. They were down 4-1 in that game and won 5-4 in overtime. And Alexander Wenberg had the overtime game-winning goal in that game. And then Utah Hockey Club won in San Jose by a final score of 4-3. Clayton Keller scored the game-winning goal in that game, which was a late power play goal for Utah with 44 seconds left in the third period. And just a reminder, all 7 Canadian NHL teams will be in action tomorrow, so obviously that's going to be fun to see, especially if you're Canadian. But whether you're Canadian or American, seeing all 7 Canadian teams in action on a Saturday really makes your day, and this always really makes me excited and tunes in, especially when the Oilers will be playing the Blackhawks tomorrow at the United Center in Chicago. So, like I said, always great to see all 7 Canadian teams in action on the Saturday for Hockey Night in Canada. Always exciting show to tune in. And a lot of you guys, especially if you're Canadian, watched the show growing up, Hockey Night in Canada. Whenever it was Saturday night, Hockey Night in Canada, you will always tune in. I mean, that's kind of like how I feel as a hockey fan myself. Saturday, Hockey Night in Canada, I'm tuning in right away. All right, guys, so that is going to do it for this episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. Really do appreciate it. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Make sure you follow this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeart Radio, Amazon Music. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. The more subscribers, more followers, the more people will tune in to the Hockey Talk TG podcast. It's your podcast for all things hockey. So make sure you do that. But nonetheless, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. God first as always. Be blessed. I'll see you guys Monday for another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. Take care.